that is precisely what we do.
Sir Olney.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Go for it.
In July 2024, the Secretary of State pledged to launch a consultation on the regulation of frontier AI systems shortly. However, recent reports suggest it won't be forthcoming until summer 2026, as leading AI companies have admitted that their systems could be used to develop biological and nuclear weapons. Could the Minister confirm why there has been a delay?
I'm afraid the Shadow Chancellor was coming in, who I've known for a very long time. I wouldn't cheer him quite so enthusiastically myself. As charming a man as he is. But it meant that I didn't hear the honourable member's question, so I'm very happy to write to her afterwards to confirm.
Mr. Speaker, Stratford-on-Bow is a thriving hub of innovation, which is why the Prime Minister chose it for the launch of the AI Opportunities Action Plan earlier this year. One brilliant example is Health Tech One. Once a kitchen table start-up of doctors and tech experts, they now automate admin for 22% of GP practices. Their new patient registration system has saved the NHS a staggering 183 years of time. What's the government doing to support homegrown innovation like this scale up their work?
I thank the honourable member for her question. Her constituency is indeed a hotbed for innovation. The honourable member will be delighted to know that Health Tech Care One has benefited from a range of government support today. This includes Innovate UK grant awarded to the company only recently.
We now come to questions to the Prime Minister. Mic'd up.
Question number 1, please, Mr. Speaker.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've been asked to reply as my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, was attending the Nato summit in The Hague. At this time of international volatility, we are working with our allies to de-escalate the tensions in the Middle East and to ensure the conflict does not intensify further. Our aim continues to be preventing Iran from securing nuclear weapons and to urge the Iranians to return to negotiations. Mr. Speaker, the situation in Gaza remains the gravest concern. Seeing the return of more hostages' bodies and that of Shay Leveson and the Israeli with British family is heartbreaking. The remaining hostages must be released, and while aid must be delivered at greater speed and volume. Mr. Speaker, this week is Armed Forces Week. Our commitment to armed forces is unwavering. The Strategic Defence Review outlines how we will give our armed forces better pay, better housing and better kit, and I pay tribute to their commitment, bravery and selflessness. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others, and in addition to my duties in the House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Mic'd up.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The party opposite gave up on law and order. They betrayed our country and let criminals run riot. Now they desperately post wannabe superhero videos, shamelessly pointing at the problems that they created. But last week, Mr. Speaker, they had the chance to put it right. And what did they do? They voted against tough action on knife crime, on antisocial behaviour and on violence against women and girls. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree that they should hang their heads in shame for failing to protect our streets?
Order. Spoke to government responsibilities, not the opposition. Let's come to Mel Stride.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is a pleasure to stand opposite the Right Honourable Lady. Despite what many may think, we have a great deal in common, not least that we both viscerally disagree with the Chancellor's tax policies. And it is great to see the Right Honourable Lady standing in temporarily for the Prime Minister for the second week running. Although I know there are many sitting behind her who wish this was a permanent arrangement. Indeed, Mr. Speaker, you will find many of their names amongst the 122 who have signed up to oppose the government's welfare bill. They say that the bill is dangerously rushed and ill thought through. So can the Right Honourable Lady explain why she thinks that she is right and 122 of her own colleagues are wrong?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, Mr Speaker, it's nice to face the latest wannabe at your dispatch box. I'll tell the right honourable member why we're pressing ahead with our reforms, and that is because we're investing £1 billion into tailored employment support, a right to try to help more people back into work, and ending reassessments for the most severely disabled who will never be able to work. Mr Speaker, we won't walk away and stand by and abandon millions of people trapped in the failing system, left behind by him and his colleagues.
Well, Mr Speaker, the right honourable lady completely sidestepped my question. She can't even defend her own government's policy. Can she at least assure the House that the vote on Tuesday will actually go ahead?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I don't know if he sort of listened to what I said because I was reading off the script, but what I can tell him, and I don't need the script, we will go ahead on Tuesday.
Well, there you have it, Mr Speaker. There will be a vote in this House on Tuesday on the welfare bill, although many on the back benches could be forgiven for thinking they've heard this before with the winter fuel payment, where they were marched up the hill, and we all know where that story ended. But, Mr Speaker, on this side of the House, we are absolutely clear. We will help her to get their bill through if they can commit to actually reducing the welfare bill and getting people off benefits and into work. Can the right honourable lady make that commitment right now? Yes or no?
Well, if ever we needed a reminder of the party opposite having no shames, it's their demands for this bill, Mr Speaker. He demands a programme to help people into work, exactly what this bill does. After he left 1 in 8 young people out of the economy, he demands no new taxes from the party that raised taxes to record levels, and he demands further welfare savings, Mr Speaker, from the man who was in charge as the welfare bill absolutely ballooned. They say cut welfare bill, they failed. They say cut people in work, they failed. They say no tax increases, they failed.
Mr Speaker, I'm afraid the right honourable lady has clearly not read her own legislation. The bill will see the number of people on welfare rising for every single year going forward. There is no commitment from the right honourable lady to cut the number of people on welfare. And even if they manage to deliver these reforms, almost every respected economist now says tax rises are all but inevitable in the autumn. But after the budget, Mr Speaker, the Chancellor said, and I quote, "I'm not coming back for more taxes." Mr Speaker, British businesses have been hit again and again by Labour's economic mismanagement. They are desperate for certainty. So can the right honourable lady give them that certainty now and repeat to the House the Chancellor's promise not to raise taxes at the budget?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, this is a bit rich. Unbelievable. Inflation above 11%. The biggest tax rises by their party. I take no lectures. And on this issue in particular, Mr Speaker, they can't make their minds up. First they said our reforms were taking too long, then they say they were rushed, then their front bench said our measures were too tough, and now they say they need to be tougher. No plan, no idea. I wonder why their party was left in such a mess.
Mr Speaker, the whole House will have heard that the right honourable lady did not repeat the Chancellor's promise not to raise taxes. And Britain's businesses have today been put on notice. Tax rises are coming. Specifically, in her own area, despite Labour's promises to freeze council tax, the IFS says that the spending review will mean the biggest council tax increases in a generation, a £7 billion tax rise. And yet the Chancellor and the Prime Minister have repeatedly claimed that the government will not raise taxes on working people. So can I ask the right honourable lady, why doesn't she think that council tax is paid by working people?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Again, Mr Speaker, I think they've got an absolute nerve when council tax rose every single year under under their government. In fact, Mr Speaker, I had to turn down the Tories on the LJ who wanted me to take away the precept to make sure that they could raise taxes above the 5%. We've kept it there, Mr Speaker, while delivering money for local government where they had austerity, put taxes up and ruined the British economy.
Well, Mr Speaker, when you cut out the blather, isn't the reality that this Labour government has condemned us to higher taxes, more debt, fewer jobs, more pain for businesses right up and down our country? Borrowing up, unemployment up, inflation up. Yet the Right Honourable Lady tells us the government's plan is working. It's not just me who isn't convinced, Mr Speaker. The people behind her are not convinced either. And neither are the public. In fact, Mr Speaker, I'm not even sure if the Right Honourable Lady herself is convinced. So can I ask her, isn't she just a little embarrassed to be defending policies she doesn't even agree with herself?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Mr Speaker, I'm embarrassed every week that somebody comes here from their opposition who doesn't apologise for the mess they left this country in. There was one party that crashed the economy and left families paying the price. We're putting working people first, Mr Speaker. I'm proud. We've got a huge boost to the minimum wage, the biggest uplift to affordable housing in a generation, and expanding free school meals to 500,000 children. The Tories' choice, billions of pounds in unfunded tax cuts for the very wealthiest. We know where that gets us. It's the same old Tory failed approach. They haven't listened and they haven't learned a thing.
Joe Morris.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Frodder Community High School in my constituency was forced to relocate to Washington after their just over 8-year-old building, built under the previous government, was found to have cracks in the infrastructure. This incredibly distressing news has required huge resilience and strength from the local community. So will my right honourable friend join me in paying tribute to the staff, to the parents, and most importantly to the students at Frodder Community High School, and join me in commending them for their hard work and dedication during this incredibly destabilising time?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I will do, Mr Speaker, and I thank my honourable friend for bringing this important issue to my attention. I can only imagine the disruption and challenges facing the school community. One of the shameful legacies of the party opposite was to leave schools across our country literally crumbling. We're fixing that with £20 billion of investment in school rebuildings programme over the next decade to rebuild over 750 schools, Mr Speaker, and I know the Minister for Early Education will be happy to meet with him to discuss.
Deputy Leader of the Liberal Democrats, Stacey Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. And may I start by associating myself and my party with the remarks of the Deputy Prime Minister in calling for de-escalation in the Middle East, for the release of hostages and for the urgent aid to get into Gaza. We Liberal Democrats are opposed to the government's cuts to personal independence payments and carers' allowance. And with a growing rebellion on the government's own benches, it seems as though the government may be forced to push these cuts through with the support of the official opposition. The Deputy Prime Minister knows that some of those affected are still waiting for justice after the carers' allowance scandal saw thousands of innocent carers hounded for repayments. So can the Deputy Prime Minister give a cast-iron guarantee that if these cuts are pursued, that at the very least, not a single person will lose a penny until the carers' allowance scandal review has been completed and the recommendations implemented?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, thank you for opening comments, Mr Speaker, and she knows that we've already been taking steps and those steps will continue on the carers' allowance. The welfare system, as she knows as well, is failing people. Labour are the party of work, but we're also the party of fairness. That's why our bill will deliver the largest permanent real terms increase to basic out-of-work support since the 1980s, invest in tailored employment support so that people can try work safely, Mr Speaker, and to ensure that those that can never work are properly supported.
Stacey Cooper.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's disappointing that the Deputy Prime Minister couldn't give that cast-iron guarantee, but if the government does pursue this bill next week, then we will pursue this matter on behalf of carers. Mr Speaker, Given the reports that the government is giving a green light to President Trump's demands for a state visit to be brought forward to September, does the Deputy Prime Minister agree that the UK should urgently convene talks with the White House in advance of that state visit in order to leverage that state visit to secure US guarantees for Ukraine, including the use of frozen Russian assets, and to secure a joint UK-US message to Putin that together our two countries will not let Putin win his illegal war?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, I say, Mr Speaker, the UK government is always in discussions, negotiations and talks with our US counterparts. We're really pleased that the US President is coming for a second state visit, and we will continue to welcome in that vein, and we'll continue to have those discussions.
Debbie Abraham.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In Oldham, there are 727 families currently living in temporary accommodation, 8,000 families on the waiting list. And this obviously has a devastating impact on particularly the children of these families. So will the Deputy Prime Minister outline how she will use the £39 billion that have been allocated to her department in the spending review to fix the housing crisis left by the opposition? So families in Oldham, Saddleworth and wider can get the affordable homes that they need.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, my honourable friend is absolutely right, and as neighbouring MPs, we know the impact on the temporary accommodation situation and children being homeless it has on their life chances. And my honourable friend is absolutely right to raise the issue and for highlighting the excellent work, Mr Speaker, of Dr Laura Nilsson, who is supporting us to develop a cross-government homelessness strategy. All children should have a safe and secure home, and that's why I'm so proud that we've confirmed the biggest boost to social and affordable housing investment in a generation. We're getting on with the job of the mess they left behind.
Gavin Robinson.
Very much, Mr Speaker, and can I identify my colleagues and I with the comments around de-escalation in the Middle East? The Deputy Prime Minister, I hope, will condemn recent disorder in the streets of Northern Ireland, as the Prime Minister and indeed my colleagues have. Does she accept that the Windsor Framework, though sold to this House as an issue for trade, is fundamentally impacting the ability of this sovereign Parliament to legislate on a UK-wide basis on the matters of immigration? Will she commit to ensure this government continues to robustly challenge against that expansionism that is currently before the courts? And if not, will she legislate to ensure that we as a country can control our own borders?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, first of all, Mr Speaker, I do condemn the violence on the streets, and the provisions in the Belfast Good Friday Agreement referred to in Article 2 of the Windsor Framework sought to address the long-standing and specific issues relating to Northern Ireland's past. I hope the Right Honourable Gentleman is assured that we're appealing a number of the law relating to Article 2 of the courts, including the Supreme Court, and I hope he will also be assured by the reality that the government is consistently applied and enforced immigration law on a UK-wide basis, and the government will take all necessary steps to defend that position, just as we will remain committed to protecting rights across the whole of the UK, Mr Speaker, as it should be Parliament that makes rules on immigration.
Rebecca Long-Bailey.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Last night, Newsnight covered the Daily Mirror's 3-year investigation of the nuked blood scandal, in which thousands of troops had blood and urine monitored, even chest x-rays, during nuclear weapons tests, but the results were withheld from their medical records and their suffering denied for decades. So as a fierce supporter of these men and their families who she's met with me, will the Right Honourable Lady agree this Armed Forces Week that time is now of the essence? These elderly veterans deserve answers, justice and an apology.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, as my honourable friend said, Mr Speaker, I commend her for the campaigning work that she's done on this issue, and I have met with some of those affected, and I know the strength of feeling on this, and I've heard their deeply personal testimony and experiences. I pay tribute to all of the nuclear veterans and their enduring contribution to our nation's security, especially during Armed Forces Week, and we're looking into unresolved questions regarding medical records, Mr Speaker, as a matter of priority.
Ben Lake.
Mr Speaker, I should like to join the Deputy Prime Minister in thanking members of the Armed Forces community for their service. And Mr Speaker, I've had the privilege privilege in recent months of meeting many veterans in my own constituency, some of whom still carry the trauma of war. Some, including amputees, have told me how repeat disability assessments are too often required of them in order to access financial support. And so does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that veterans with life-changing service-related injuries should be exempted from repeat disability assessments in future?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, again, that part of the reforms we want to do is ensure that those that can never work are properly supported and not put through this endless assessment. And I thank the Right Honourable Member for raising the case. We are committed to renewing the nation's contract with those that we serve, and a range of support is in place for veterans, including dedicated medical and physical health care, pathways in the NHS, employment and in housing. And the new support system, VALA, backed by £50 million of funding, will provide a network of support centres to connect veterans with local and national services.
Natasha Irons.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Successive Conservative governments stripped our councils of funding for youth services, pitting them against services with stronger statutory protections. This has led to 1 in 8 councils no longer having a youth centre, and in Croydon, London's youngest borough, is about to lose its youth engagement team and its last crumb of council-run universal youth provision. So can she outline what this Labour government is doing to support our young people? And does she agree with me that this is time again to look at statutory protections for youth services so that all young people, no matter where they live, can get the services they deserve?
Prime Minister.
Well, I completely agree, my honourable friend, that the party opposite left a trail of devastation across education and youth services, and given half the chance, judging by their moans, Mr Speaker, they'd do it all over again. We're making different choices, working with young people to draw up a landmark new national youth strategy, investing £145 million this year to provide stability to the youth sector, rolling out youth future hubs to expand access opportunities and reduce crime, and extending access to mental health support to nearly 1 million more children this year.
James McCleary.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. The Government's expansion of funded childcare from September is welcome, but early years settings are facing a critical staffing crisis that could make expanded provision practically impossible. Not enough applicants, lack of qualifications, low salaries and high turnover mean that many nurseries are operating well below capacity. Many now find themselves operating at a loss due to increased national insurance contributions. So can the Deputy Prime Minister outline what clear steps the Government is taking to address the crisis in early years staffing to ensure that all our children get the best possible start in life?
Well, Mr Speaker, first of all, I'll out that one of my kids is in the gallery and he's just completed his studies on early years, so hopefully that will add a little help to that. But look, we inherited a depleted early years sector, Mr Speaker, but we're determined to make sure that all children have the best possible start in life, and that's why we're delivering the largest ever uplift to the early years pupil premium, boosting family hubs and Start for Life funding by £126 million this year, and investing £370 million to create tens of thousands of places in new and expanded school-based nurseries.
Chris Curtis.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Milton Keynes has one of the fastest growing tech sectors in the country, with 1 in 3 people now working in tech jobs at firms like Red Bull Racing and the AI company Amy. Now, Eleanor, a student in my constituency, is in the gallery today, so can the Deputy Prime Minister let her know, and this House know, how the Government's new industrial strategy will support our tech sector and provide her generation with good quality jobs in the future?
Prime Minister.
Well, I'm glad to see that I'm not the only one who's got a young person destined to future in the gallery today. And my honourable friend's been a huge champion for Milton Keynes, and he's right, after the Tory decline, it's time to turn the page. We've already created 384,000 jobs since the election, and our industrial strategy will create opportunities across the country and invest in jobs and industries of the future, included in Milton Keynes, where the East Rail will help build 100,000 new homes and £6.7 million a year in the local economy.
Cameron Thomas.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. In 1957, my Tewkesbury constituent Ronald Clark was amongst 22,000 UK personnel exposed to nuclear testing on Christmas Island. These veterans and their descendants have suffered various cancers, crippling illnesses and deformities, but the MOD has never accepted liability. Noting the Deputy Prime Minister's response to her honourable friend doesn't quite go far enough. Time is running out. Will she meet with me, my constituent and these veterans to determine appropriate compensation?
The Prime Minister.
Well, again, Mr Speaker, I know the strength of feeling, and I'm grateful to his constituent Ronald and all the service personnel who participated in the British nuclear testing programme, and I'm sure the Minister for Veterans would be happy to meet with him and the veterans to discuss this issue.
Serena Brackenridge.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. Under the old guard of the Conservatives, families had to earn less than £7,400, often in low-paid and insecure work, to qualify for free school meals. But under this Labour government, thousands more children in Wolverhampton North East and 500,000 more across the country will benefit from free school meals. Will the Deputy Prime Minister outline how Labour's plans will put more money in parents' pockets?
Well, Mr Speaker, we're determined to tackle child poverty, which rose catastrophically under the last government, and that's why we're expanding access to free school meals to more than 500,000 children. This will lift 100,000 of the poorest children out of poverty and put £500 back into parents' pockets. This comes on top of 750 free breakfast clubs worth £450 a year to parents, and a historic uplift in the national minimum wage worth up to £2,500 to the lowest paid workers.
Snowden.
Given the Right Honourable Lady appears to be enjoying spending yet another week practising to be Prime Minister, maybe she can give us her view on who she would get rid of in the up-and-coming reshuffle. Would it be the Chancellor for killing economic growth? Would it be the Work and Pensions Secretary for the botched handling of the welfare bill and the winter fuel cuts? Would it be the Environment Secretary for trying to destroy British family farms? Would it be the Foreign Secretary for giving away British sovereign territory and paying billions to rent it back? Or given the Prime Minister is now polling as having the most unpopular first year in modern British political history, would she do herself and the country a favour and tell him to show himself the door?
Mr Speaker, maybe he wants to go next week, because it's been quite the carousel, and the Leader of the Opposition said she was going to get better week on week. She already has in the last 2 weeks by not turning up. And Mr Speaker, I'm just wondering when they're going to give the Shadow Justice Secretary a go.
Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. I'm proud and honoured to say that I've served this country as a reservist parachute, which is why I'd like to thank and take this opportunity to thank all our service members and their families during Armed Forces Week. This Labour government has announced the largest sustained increase since the end of the Cold War. Will the Deputy Prime Minister set out how the government will rebuild Britain and secure our defence for the future?
Well, Mr Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for his question and for his service. He's absolutely right. Our armed forces represent the very best of Britain and put their lives on the line for us every day. It's our responsibility to support those who defend us, and we're delivering the biggest sustained boost to defence spending since the end of the Cold War. The Strategic Defence Review sets out our vision for defence, driving jobs and prosperity and renewing the nation's contract with those who serve to secure Britain into the future.
Oliver Dowden.
Thank you, Mr Speaker, and it's a pleasure to be asking the Right Honourable Lady another question at Prime Minister's Questions, although this time just the one. There has been a proliferation of houses of multiple occupation in my constituency in places like Potters Bar and Bournemouth. Quiet residential streets like Tiverton Road and Organ Hall Road are being blighted by houses, quiet family houses, being converted into houses of multiple occupation, leading to a surge in antisocial behaviour and parking problems. May I therefore urge the Deputy Prime Minister to look at enhancing the powers of local councils to stop these kind of developments where they are not wanted.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I do miss our exchanges. I hope he's been wearing his Factor 50. He knows how it can get for us gingers in the hot weather. But he also knows, Mr Speaker, that local authorities have planning powers to limit the proliferation of small houses into multiple occupation. And his government left a housing crisis. I'm getting on with fixing that with the 1.5 million homes that we're going to deliver.
The member for Clacton put a singular burning injustice first. The plight of overseas billionaires paying too much tax. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with his priority, or with me, that the Reform UK doing sweetheart deals with the super rich is a betrayal of British working people?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I was asked about the member for Clacton's mathematics the other week, and my honourable friend is absolutely right. The mask has slipped again this week. The honourable member for Clacton demands billions more in unfunded tax cuts for the very richest, while he marches through the lobbies in the House of Commons to vote against sick pay for the lowest earners. We know who pay for reform tax breaks, Mr. Speaker, for overseas billionaires, tax hikes on working people and patients being charged to see their doctor. Labour won't let that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. When my young constituent Axel was given his EHCP a year ago, his primary school place was withdrawn and no replacement offered. His nursery allowed him to stay on till Christmas, but since then, apart from a short break at a school, he's had nothing. He's at home with his mum, no alternative provision for younger children, and those young children can't travel a long way. His mother also can't go to work. So while I welcome the white paper in the autumn, can the Deputy Prime Minister commit to Axel's mum, but also the parents of Freddie, Ewan, Ethan and the other 640 SEND children with no school to go, there'll be somewhere for them in September?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I'm really sorry to hear about Axel and the other cases that the honourable member mentioned. Those with special educational needs do deserve proper support and shouldn't be left at home. We're determined to fix the SEND system and support children before issues escalate to this type of crisis point. We're investing £3.4 billion this year to deploy specialist teams across early years and primary school settings, helping to identify and respond to speech and language needs, particularly for children with SEND. And we'll set out our full plans, Mr. Speaker, to the reform of SEND this autumn, including support for early years.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Growth needs to be delivered and felt in all parts of the country, and the infrastructure strategy, changes to the Green Book and the £1.8 billion secured for the North East are a clear demonstration of our commitment to that. In my area, Moor Farm Roundabout is blocking growth and is causing misery for people locally. Does the Deputy Prime Minister agree with me that improving infrastructure in the north, like at Moor Farm, will show how we are investing in all parts of the country?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, she's absolutely right, Mr. Speaker. The previous government didn't have a plan for areas like the North East, and I know she's been a champion regarding the Moor Farm roundabout. And this government is changing the situation by investing £15.6 billion funding for local transport projects across the country, opening up access to jobs and improving living standards, including in the North East.
Neil O'Brien.
Mr. Speaker, Labour have invited proposals from cities to expand their boundaries, and the Mayor of Leicester wants to expand the cities to swallow up areas like Oadby, Wigston and Great Glen. But local people don't want this, and thousands of them have signed our petition against it. It's not just the higher council tax, they want to keep their own local identity. So will the Deputy Prime Minister rule out this totally unwelcome city takeover? And if she does want to press ahead with it, will she at least give us a say in a local referendum so that we can tell her again, we don't want this?
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what they were told at the general election is they don't want you. All right then, your government. You might have slipped through. But the one thing I will say, Mr. Speaker, is the honourable member said about his own government. There's a lot of things we should have done. There's a lot of things we should do that we didn't do. And to be honest, I couldn't agree more, and we're getting on and doing it.
In Armed Forces Week, will the Deputy Prime Minister join with me in paying tribute to my former colleagues at RAF Bryce Norton? I know she will share my horror that some on the opposition benches responded to that appalling attack on that base, not by recognising the consequences of 14 years of Conservative underinvestment in our defence, but by personally smearing one of our brave members of the Royal Air Force. Does she agree with me and my honourable and gallant friend from North East Derbyshire that this Labour government will always support our armed forces, and that those shameful comments of Deputy Reform bring disgrace upon him and his party?
Well, Mr. Mr. Speaker, my honourable and gallant friend speaks with great authenticity and authority on this matter, and the attack on the RAF Bryce Norton was disgraceful. But what was even more disgraceful is Reform blaming the commanding officer, an accomplished woman who has served her country, rather than the criminals that were responsible. That's not leadership, Mr. Speaker, but we shouldn't expect anything better from the party of the Putin apologists.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. London boroughs are collectively facing a funding shortfall of at least £500 million for the current financial year. But despite this, the money allocated to local authorities in London by the government spending review fell 35% short of the amount requested by London councils. Now, under the government's planned changes to local authority funding, the two councils in my constituency, Richmond and Kingston, are set to lose out even more while the cost of funding local services continues to rise. Is it the government's policy that London residents should continue to receive ever-increasing council tax bills while their local authorities have less and less money to spend? Thank you.
Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, what I would say is that we're fixing the foundations of local government after 14 years of austerity that was inflicted with the aiding and abetting of her party on local government. In the past, we're putting record funding into local government and multi-year settlements to help them. We're helping local government where they ruined it.
Elsie Blundell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Digital black spots are areas without good mobile broadband connectivity or holding communities back. In Middleton, an area my right honourable friend knows well as a fellow Greater Manchester MP, many local businesses and people remain cut off from the economic growth of the wider city region due to lack of mobile signal. How can we make sure that this government's mission to capitalise on the promise of technology is felt in all parts of the country, including Middleton?
Well, Mr. Speaker, she's absolutely right. I've had digital black spots as well myself, so I understand the member's frustration. I would say to the member, the industrial strategy was launched this week, and there are some great ideas, and now we make sure we get super fast broadband everywhere, and that we can all use our phone, Mr. Speaker, to make sure we can get connected when they left us disconnected.
Yeah. Final question, Jeremy Corbyn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday, 86 people were killed in Gaza by Israeli forces. A further 56 were shot dead whilst queuing for food to try to sustain themselves under the occupation of the Israeli forces. Israel stands condemned for acts of genocide, for war crimes, for their occupation of Gaza and their activities in the West Bank. So 2 points to the Deputy Prime Minister. Why does Britain still supply parts for the F-35 jets that have been used to take so much life in Gaza? And secondly, how is it that this country has got to this situation where we stand on the wrong side of international law when war crimes and genocide are concerned? So will she support my private member's bill calling for an independent inquiry into how our policies evolved into this parlous situation?
Yeah. Prime Minister.
Well, Mr. Speaker, Israel's recent action is appalling and counterproductive, and we strongly oppose to the expansion of military operations, settler violence and blocking of humanitarian aid. We have suspended FTA talks and sanctioned extremists supporting settler expansion in the West Bank, and it's a long-standing principle, Mr. Speaker, that genocide is determined by competent international courts and not for government, and we do not sell arms trades directly to IDF that might breach international humanitarian law.
Right, that completes Deputy Prime Minister's questions. Right, we now come to the urgent question. Shadow Secretary of State, James Cartledge.
Thank you, Mr.